The stars looked the same as they always had, but Commander Sarah Chen knew better. Out here in the cold darkness between solar systems, nothing was ever truly the same. She stood on the bridge of the UNSC Defiance, watching the screen that showed empty space ahead. Her ship was small compared to the massive vessels of other species. The aliens called it primitive. They called humans many things, and none of them were compliments. Sarah had been in space for 15 years. She remembered when Earth first joined the Galactic Council. Everyone had been so excited. Humanity would finally take its place among the stars, they said. They would learn from ancient civilizations, they said. It would be a new golden age. That was 3 generations ago. Now everyone knew the truth. The galaxy did not want partners. It wanted servants. The Galactic Council controlled everything. They decided who could settle which planets. They decided who could mine which asteroids. They decided who mattered and who did not. Humanity had learned very quickly where they stood. The Council gave humans the unwanted jobs, mining operations in dangerous sectors, trade routes that nobody else wanted, patrol duties in empty space where nothing ever happened, at least nothing was supposed to happen. The alarm broke the silence. Sarah's second officer, Lieutenant James Park, looked up from his station. His face went pale as he read the incoming transmission. "Commander, we have a distress signal. It's from New Providence Colony." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. New Providence was a small mining settlement. 3,000 people lived there. Most of them were families, children, people just trying to make a living in the rocks and dust of a planet nobody else wanted. "Put it through," she said. The voice that came through was broken by static and terror. A woman was screaming. In the background, Sarah could hear weapons fire. The distinctive sound of energy weapons. "Not human weapons. They're killing everyone. Please, somebody help us." They came out of nowhere and the transmission cut off. Sarah did not hesitate. "Navigation, set course for New Providence." "Maximum speed." "Commander, that will take us 6 hours," Park said. "I know," Sarah replied quietly. 6 hours. She knew what could happen in 6 hours. The Defiance pushed its engines hard. Sarah watched the clock. Every minute felt like an hour. She tried calling New Providence again and again. Nobody answered. When they finally arrived, Sarah wished they had not. New Providence was burning. The colony's dome had been shattered. Buildings were destroyed, and everywhere there were bodies. The Defiance landed near what used to be the main settlement. Sarah led the security team outside. They wore full combat suits, but they did not find any enemies. The raiders were long gone. All they found were the dead and the dying. Sarah knelt beside a man who was barely breathing. His name was Thomas Wright. She knew him. He had 2 daughters. "Who did this?" she asked softly. Thomas coughed blood. "Carvon. They came for the ore shipment. We gave it to them. They killed us anyway. For fun." His eyes found hers. "My girls. They took my girls." Sarah held his hand until he stopped breathing. Then she stood up and looked at the destruction around her. The Carvon. She knew that name. Everyone did. They were raiders and slavers. They were also protected by the Council. The Carvon had what the Council called historic territorial rights to this sector. It did not matter that humans had settled here legally. It did not matter that the Carvon only used those rights as an excuse to steal and murder. The Council protected them because the Carvon were old. They had been in space for 10,000 years. Humanity had been in space for less than 200. In the Council's eyes, that made the Carvon more important. Sarah and her team found 42 survivors. Out of 3,000 people, they loaded them onto the Defiance and headed back to Earth. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood before the Galactic Council. The chamber was enormous. Representatives from 50 different species sat in curved rows that rose up like a stadium. At the center, on the highest seats, sat the 5 members of the Sovereign Collective. They were the real power in the galaxy. Sarah presented her report. She showed them images of the massacre. She showed them the testimony of the survivors. She demanded justice. The Council listened in silence. When she finished, there was a long pause. Then the Carvon representative stood up. He was tall and covered in thick scales. When he smiled, Sarah could see rows of sharp teeth. "The humans were warned," he said. His voice was smooth and cold. "That sector belongs to the Carvon. We have ancient rights there. If humans choose to settle in our territory, they accept the risks." Sarah felt rage building inside her. "You murdered children. We enforced our territorial rights, the Carvan replied. How we choose to do that is our business. Sarah turned to the Sovereign Collective. Are you going to let this stand? 3,000 people are dead. Families were butchered. Children were taken as slaves. The lead counselor, a being made of pure energy that called itself Zephan, spoke without emotion. The Carvan's territorial claims are recognized by Council Charter. Humanity knew the risks when you settled New Providence. The Council finds no violation of galactic law. No violation? Sarah could not believe what she was hearing. They committed genocide. They enforced territorial rights, Zephan corrected. Humanity is dismissed. Sarah stood there for a moment, unable to move. Around her, she could hear some of the alien representatives laughing quietly. They thought this was funny. They thought human suffering was entertainment. She walked out of the council chamber with her head high. But inside, something had changed. For 3 generations, humanity had tried to play by the rules. They had been patient. They had been diplomatic. They had believed that eventually the galaxy would accept them as equals. Sarah finally understood the truth. The galaxy would never accept humanity. Not as equals. The Council saw humans as weak because humans cared about things like justice and mercy. Because humans believed that individual lives mattered. Sarah thought about Thomas Wright and his daughters. She thought about the 3,000 dead at New Providence. She thought about all the other human colonies out there, unprotected and alone. As she boarded the transport back to Earth, Sarah made a decision. She was done playing by their rules. She was done being patient. Somewhere in the galaxy, a line had been crossed. The aliens just did not know it yet. 6 months passed after New Providence. Sarah Chen tried to move on, but the galaxy would not let her forget. 3 more human colonies were attacked. The Carvan came each time, and each time the Council did nothing. They gave the same answer. Historic territorial rights. Accept the risks. Humanity is dismissed, but something was changing on Earth. People were angry. Not just the soldiers or the politicians, everyone. Workers in factories talked about it. Students protested in the streets. Parents looked at their children and wondered if humanity had a future among the stars. The attacks became bolder. The Carvans stopped pretending they cared about territory. They raided human ships in open space. They took slaves. They broadcast videos of their attacks across the galaxy's networks. Some alien species thought it was entertaining. They placed bets on how long human colonies would last. Then came New Horizon. New Horizon was not a small mining outpost. It was a full colony world. 2 million people lived there. They had cities and farms and schools. It was supposed to be safe. The Council had guaranteed its protection when humans paid an enormous fee for settlement rights. The Carvan attacked at dawn. Their fleet came out of faster-than-light travel right above the planet. They did not bother with military targets. They hit the cities directly. Sarah was on Earth when it happened. She watched the news feeds with everyone else. She watched the Carvan ships fire into population centers. She watched buildings collapse. She watched people run and scream and die. The worst part was the broadcast. The Carvan streamed everything live. They wanted the galaxy to watch. They wanted humans to see what happened when weak species tried to claim worlds they could not defend. 5,000 people died in the first hour. Most of them were civilians. The Carvan hit a school district. 800 children died instantly. The news showed footage of parents digging through rubble with their bare hands, screaming for their kids. The Carvan commander appeared on the broadcast. His name was Frekar, and he was laughing. "This is what happens to prey that thinks it can play with predators," he said. "Let this be a lesson to all humans. You do not belong here. Go back to your little planet and stay there." The broadcast ended with images of human survivors being loaded onto Carvan slave ships. Earth went silent. Not quiet. Silent. It was like the entire planet stopped breathing. Sarah sat in her apartment staring at the blank screen. She thought about all the times she had followed orders. All the times she had been patient. All the times she had believed that the system would work eventually. She thought about Thomas Wright's daughters at New Providence. She thought about the 800 children at New Horizon. She thought about every human who had died because the Council decided their lives did not matter. Her phone rang. It was Admiral Marcus Webb, the commander of Earth's defense fleet. "Report to headquarters immediately," he said. Emergency session. Sarah arrived at the military complex to find it surrounded by thousands of people. They were not protesting. They were just standing there, watching, waiting. Some held signs with the names of people who had died. Some held pictures of children. Inside, the Situation Room was filled with every high-ranking officer in the human military. The president of Earth's United Government was there too. Her name was Elena Vasquez, and Sarah had never seen her look so tired. Admiral Webb stood at the front of the room. He was an old man, with gray hair and scars from the early days of human space exploration. He had always been calm, patient, diplomatic. Not today. The Council has responded to our demands regarding New Horizon, Webb said. His voice was flat, empty. They have declined to take action against the Carvan. They say the attack was justified because New Horizon failed to pay the quarterly protection fee on time. We were 3 days late due to a banking error. Nobody spoke. The silence was heavy. They are saying 5,000 people died because of a paperwork mistake, Webb continued. They are saying those 800 children died because we were 3 days late with a payment. President Vasquez stood up slowly. I have drafted a formal declaration. Tomorrow I will present it to the Galactic Council. We are demanding the immediate surrender of Commander Vrekar and his entire fleet for trial on charges of genocide and war crimes. If the Council refuses, humanity will withdraw from all Council agreements and treaties. They will refuse, someone said. I know, Vasquez replied. The next day, President Vasquez addressed the Galactic Council. The chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives. They all wanted to see what the humans would do. Some looked curious. Most looked amused. Vasquez read the declaration clearly. She did not shout or cry. She simply stated the facts and made the demand. Surrender Vrekar and his commanders, or humanity would consider the Council in violation of its own laws protecting member species. The Carvan representative laughed. He actually laughed. What will you do, little humans? File another complaint? Write another strongly worded letter? He turned to face the other council members. For 3 generations we have tolerated these primitives. They whine about every little conflict. They cry when they lose a few thousand citizens. Perhaps it is time we taught them their place. Other representatives joined in the laughter. Not all of them. Some species stayed quiet, but enough laughed to fill the chamber with the sound. Vasquez waited until the laughter died down. Then she spoke 5 words that would change everything. Humanity withdraws from the Council. The laughter stopped. Effective immediately, Vasquez continued. All human ambassadors, traders, and citizens are recalled to Earth. All treaties and agreements with the Galactic Council are void. All human territory is now closed to Council ships. Any vessel entering human space without permission will be considered hostile. Zephon, the energy being who led the Sovereign Collective, finally spoke. You cannot survive alone. You need us. No, Vasquez said quietly. We needed you to be better than this. You failed. She turned and walked out. The galaxy watched as humanity pulled back. Every human ship, no matter where it was, turned around and headed home. Diplomats packed their bags. Traders closed their shops. Within 48 hours, humans were gone from every council world. The aliens thought it was surrender. They thought humanity was running away to hide on Earth. They thought they had won. Admiral Webb stood before the human assembly that night. Every representative from every nation on Earth was there. Billions watched the broadcast. For 3 generations, Webb said, we have tried to be good members of the galactic community. We followed their rules. We accepted their insults. We hoped that patience would earn us respect. He paused and looked directly into the camera. They mistook our patience for weakness. They mistook our compassion for cowardice. They thought because we valued peace, we could not wage war. Webb's expression hardened. They were wrong, and they are about to learn exactly how wrong they were. Behind him, screens lit up showing images that made the assembly gasp. Ships. Enormous ships. Fleets of them. Hidden in the darkness beyond Neptune. Weapons that nobody knew humanity possessed. A military force that should not exist. For 50 years, Webb explained, we have been preparing for this day. We hoped it would never come, but we always knew it might. He looked at the images of the secret fleet. The galaxy wanted to see our strength, he said softly. Now they will, and they will learn that our mercy was the greater gift. The Carvan thought humanity would hide. Instead, humanity hunted. 2 weeks after withdrawing from the Council, the Karvan launched what they called a punishment raid on Earth's outer colonies. Commander Vrekar personally led a fleet of 60 warships. They were the same ships that had destroyed New Horizon. The Karvan broadcast their approach, wanting the galaxy to watch humans learn their final lesson. They never reached the colonies. Sarah Chen was waiting for them. She commanded a battle group of 20 human ships, vessels the Karvan had never seen before. These were not the small patrol craft that humans usually flew. These were warships, built in secret over 50 years in hidden shipyards beyond Neptune. The Karvan fleet came out of faster-than-light travel expecting easy prey. Instead, they found themselves surrounded. Sarah's voice went out over all frequencies. Karvan fleet, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force. You are hereby ordered to surrender immediately for trial on charges of genocide. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Vrekar's response was predictable. He laughed. Stupid humans. You are outnumbered 3-1. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Surrender, and we will kill you quickly. Sarah did not argue. Fire, she said. The Karvan never understood what hit them. They knew human weapons were based on old technology. Chemical explosives. Kinetic projectiles. Primitive things compared to the energy weapons that other species used. Energy weapons were stopped by energy shields. Everyone knew that. But kinetic weapons did not care about energy shields. A chunk of metal moving at significant fractions of light speed did not care about anything, except whatever it hit. The first Karvan ship exploded before Vrekar could even give orders. Then another. And another. Human ships launched what looked like simple metal rods. But those rods moved so fast they appeared as streaks of light. When they hit, they released energy equivalent to nuclear weapons. The Karvan tried to fight back. Their energy beams struck human ships and the humans' shields absorbed them easily. The Karvan tried to run. Human ships were somehow faster, more maneuverable. The Karvan tried everything they knew. Nothing worked. In 17 minutes, 60 Karvan warships were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Only one ship survived. Vrekar's command ship. Sarah had ordered her fleet to disable it, not destroy it. Human Marines boarded the crippled vessel. They found Vrekar in his command center, still sitting in his chair, staring at the screens in disbelief. Sarah walked onto his bridge personally. She wanted him to see her face. How? Vrekar whispered. Your technology is primitive. Everyone knows this, Sarah smiled coldly. You thought we were primitive because we did not use the same weapons as you. You thought because we were patient, we were weak. You never asked why we were patient. You never wondered what we might be building while we waited. She leaned close to him. We were not weak. We were giving you a chance to be better. You wasted it. Vrekar was taken to Earth to stand trial. But Sarah's mission was not finished. She led her battle group directly to the Karvan homeworld. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages demanding that humanity stop. They threatened sanctions and military intervention. Sarah ignored them all. When her fleet arrived at the Karvan homeworld, she found its orbital defenses waiting. Hundreds of weapon platforms. Thousands of automated drones. The Karvan had built their entire civilization on raiding and enslaving others. They had made a lot of enemies. Their defenses were impressive. It did not matter. Sarah's fleet included ships carrying weapons that the galaxy had banned centuries ago. Nuclear missiles, antimatter warheads, and something new, something humanity had developed in secret. They called them swarm drones, thousands of small intelligent machines that worked together like a hive mind. The swarm drones went first. They overwhelmed the Karvan defenses by sheer numbers, each one sacrificing itself to take out a target. Within an hour, the Karvan homeworld was defenseless. Sarah could have destroyed their cities. She could have done to them what they had done to New Horizon. Some of her crew wanted to. They had lost friends and family to Karvan raids. But Sarah remembered why they were fighting. We are not them, she said. We do not murder children. We do not slaughter the innocent. Instead, she targeted military installations, weapon factories, shipyards, government buildings. When she was done, the Karvan still had their world. They still had their people, but they would never threaten anyone again. Then Sarah did something that shocked the galaxy even more than the military victory. She located the slave compounds. The Karvan had taken slaves for generations. Humans, yes, but also members of dozens of other species. Some had been slaves so long they had been born in captivity. They had never known freedom. Sarah's Marines went in personally. They freed everyone, 5,000 humans, 12,000 aliens from species across the galaxy. Some of them had been slaves for 50 years. Among the freed slaves were Thomas Wright's daughters. They did not remember their father. They had been too young when they were taken. But Sarah remembered him. She remembered the way he died asking about his girls. She knelt down and looked at the two small faces. They were scared and scarred and broken, but they were alive. Your father's name was Thomas Wright, Sarah said softly. He loved you very much, and he would be proud to know you are free. Sarah broadcast everything. She wanted the galaxy to see the truth about the Carvon. She wanted them to see the slave compounds, the torture chambers, the places where the Carvon kept children in cages. She also broadcast one message, transmitted on every frequency to every world in the galaxy. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Force. For 3 generations, humanity tried to work with the Galactic Council. We tried to believe that the system would protect all species equally. We were wrong. She paused, making sure everyone was listening. The Council protects the strong and the old. It ignores the weak and the young. It allows monsters to operate freely as long as those monsters have the right credentials. Her voice hardened. Humanity will no longer accept this. We will no longer hide behind bureaucracy while innocents die. From this day forward, any species that preys on the defenseless will answer to us. Any government that protects slavers and murderers will face consequences. Sarah looked directly into the camera. You wanted to see humanity's strength. Now you see it. You wanted us to show our true nature. Here it is. We are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest or the oldest, but we are the ones who will fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. She ended the transmission. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Some species were afraid. Some were angry. But many, particularly the smaller and younger species, felt something they had not felt in a long time. Hope. The Sovereign Collective held an emergency session. They were furious. Humanity had defied them. Humanity had attacked a protected species. Humanity had made them look weak. They issued a formal demand. Humanity would surrender its military fleet. Humanity would pay reparations to the Carvon. Humanity would submit to Council authority or face total war. Admiral Webb received the message while standing on the bridge of the UNSC Titan, the flagship of humanity's secret fleet. He read it carefully. Then he sent a reply containing just 3 words. Come make us. The Sovereign Collective had been the dominant power in the galaxy for 5,000 years. They had never been challenged. They had never been defied. They had certainly never been insulted so directly. They began mobilizing for war. Admiral Webb watched the intelligence reports come in. The collective was gathering fleets from 6 species, over 2,000 warships, the largest military force assembled in centuries, all of it coming for Earth. Webb should have been afraid. Instead, he smiled grimly. They still don't understand, he said to his officers. They think this is about military strength. They think we're just another species trying to take power. He looked at the star charts showing the approaching fleets. They're about to learn that humans don't fight for power. We fight for something much more dangerous than that. The Sovereign Collective's armada was magnificent. 2,000 warships from 6 different species, each one more advanced than anything humanity should have been able to match. They moved through space like a metal storm, confident and unstoppable. Their target was Earth. The collective had decided that humanity needed to be taught a permanent lesson. They would destroy the human homeworld and scatter the survivors across the galaxy as a warning to anyone else who might think about defying Council authority. Admiral Marcus Webb watched them come. He had positioned Earth's defense fleet in orbit around Mars, making the collective think humans were abandoning their homeworld. The alien commanders were pleased. They thought humanity was running scared. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. The battle began at the asteroid belt. Human ships appeared from nowhere, hidden among the rocks and ice. They struck fast and hard, targeting supply ships and support vessels. The collective fleet barely noticed. They had so many ships that losing a few dozen meant nothing. That was exactly what Webb wanted them to think. Sarah Chen led a strike group that hit the collective's forward scouts. Her ships used tactics that confused the aliens. Human vessels would charge directly at enemy ships, then suddenly reverse course. They would scatter in all directions, then reform in unexpected places. They fought without any pattern the collective could predict. The alien commanders grew frustrated. They were used to formal battles with clear strategies. They expected orderly formations and predictable movements. Humans gave them chaos instead. They fight like animals, one alien commander complained. There is no honor in this. His second officer disagreed. They fight to win. That is all that matters. As the collective fleet pushed toward Mars, human ships continued their harassment. They never stood and fought. They would strike, cause damage, and disappear. The aliens could not pin them down long enough to destroy them. Then the collective fleet reached Mars orbit and found Webb's main force waiting. Finally, the aliens thought. A real battle. Webb gave them one. For 3 hours, human and alien ships exchanged fire in brutal combat. The collective had superior numbers and technology. The humans had desperation and determination. Ships on both sides died by the hundreds. The collective was winning. Slowly but surely, they were overwhelming the human defenses. Their commanders began to celebrate. Victory was close. That was when Webb gave the order that changed everything. All ships execute Reaper protocol. Across the human fleet, crews began evacuating to hidden escape pods. The ship's artificial intelligence systems took over. And then those ships did something the collective never expected. They became weapons. Fully fueled warships, guided by AI, accelerated to maximum speed and rammed directly into collective vessels. The impacts released energy equivalent to nuclear explosions. A single human ship could destroy 5 alien vessels in a suicide run. But the humans were not dying. The crews had already escaped. Only the ships were sacrificed. In one terrible hour, the collective lost half its fleet. The survivors tried to retreat, but human ships pursued them. The battle turned from a fight into a slaughter. The collective's supreme commander, a being called Overlord Krath, watched his fleet disintegrate. He could not understand it. They value individual lives above all else, he said in confusion. That is what our intelligence said. How can they be so willing to sacrifice? His tactical officer understood. They are not sacrificing lives. They are only sacrificing equipment. The humans already evacuated. They are willing to lose their ships to save their people and destroy us. Krath stared at the screens. For the first time in his long life, he felt fear. The battle should have ended there. The collective had lost, but they were too proud to surrender. They gathered their remaining forces and pushed toward Earth itself. If they could destroy the human homeworld, they could still claim victory. They never reached it. Human ships that had been hiding throughout the solar system emerged. They hit the collective fleet from all sides. More suicide ships, more impossible tactics, and something new. The humans unveiled their final secret weapon. They called it the Hellstorm. It was a network of satellites positioned throughout Earth's solar system, each one armed with nuclear-pumped laser weapons. When activated, they created a web of energy beams that could cut through any ship. The Hellstorm fired. The collective fleet was caught in a cage of lasers. Ships died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Those that survived turned to run. Admiral Webb let them go. He broadcast a message to the fleeing collective ships, "Go home. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them that humans do not want war, but we will never again accept oppression. Tell them the old order is finished." The survivors limped back to their homeworlds, broken and defeated. They had come to destroy Earth. Instead, Earth had destroyed them. But humanity paid a terrible price. Over 300 ships had been lost. 50,000 crew members had died. Mars' orbit was filled with debris and bodies, and Earth itself had been damaged by the few collective ships that got through the defenses. 2 cities had been hit. 500,000 people were dead. Sarah Chen walked through the ruins of New Seattle. The city had taken a direct hit from an alien dreadnought before human defenses destroyed it. Buildings were flattened. Streets were cratered. And everywhere people were digging through rubble looking for survivors. She helped where she could. She pulled people from collapsed buildings. She carried injured children to medical stations. She worked until her hands bled and her body screamed for rest. An old woman stopped her. The woman's face was covered in ash and blood. She had lost everything in the attack. But she looked at Sarah with clear eyes. "Did we win?" the woman asked. Sarah nodded, too tired to speak. The old woman smiled. "Good, then it was worth it." Sarah wanted to argue. She wanted to say that nothing was worth this much death. But she looked around at the people working together, helping each other, refusing to give up despite the horror around them. She understood what the old woman meant. Humanity had proven something important. They had shown that they could fight. More importantly, they had shown why they fought, not for conquest, not for power, not for glory. They fought because some things were worth fighting for. Freedom was worth fighting for. Justice was worth fighting for. The right to exist without fear was worth fighting for. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Humanity had defeated the Sovereign Collective. The most powerful alliance in galactic history had been broken by a species barely 200 years old in space. Some species celebrated. The smaller and younger civilizations saw hope. If humanity could stand up to the collective, maybe they could too. Other species prepared for war. They saw humanity as a new threat, one that needed to be eliminated before it grew stronger. But many species simply watched and waited. They wanted to see what humanity would do with its victory. Would humans become the new oppressors? Would they take the collective's place and rule the galaxy with an iron fist? Admiral Webb knew the galaxy was watching. He knew humanity stood at a critical moment. The decisions they made now would shape the future for generations. He thought about all the people who had died, human and alien alike. He thought about the children at New Horizon. He thought about the slaves freed from the Carvon compounds. He thought about the old woman in New Seattle who said it was worth it. Webb made his decision. Humanity would not become the thing they had fought against. They would offer something different. Something the galaxy had not seen in a long time. The next day, Earth transmitted a message to every inhabited world in the galaxy. President Vasquez spoke, but Webb had helped write the words. "The war is over," she said. "Humanity has no desire to rule the galaxy. We have no desire to replace the Sovereign Collective with ourselves. We fought not for power, but for the right of all species to live without fear." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We invite all species, great and small, to join us in creating something new. A true democracy where every voice matters. A federation where justice is the same for everyone. A galaxy where strength protects the weak instead of oppressing them." Vasquez looked directly into the camera, speaking to billions of beings across countless worlds. "The old order has fallen. Together we can build something better. Together we can create a galaxy worth living in." 10 years had passed since the war ended. Sarah Chen stood on the Memorial Plaza at New Horizon, looking at the black stone wall covered in names. 5,000 names. 5,000 people who had died when the Carvon attacked. Among them were the names of 800 children who never got the chance to grow up. Sarah visited this place every year. She needed to remember why it all happened. She needed to remember what humanity had been fighting for. Behind the memorial, a new school stood. It was bigger than the one that had been destroyed. Children from a dozen different species played in the courtyard. Human children ran alongside Rissian cubs and Tethran younglings. They laughed together in the afternoon sun, not caring that their parents came from different worlds. A small Carvan child, barely 5 years old, tugged on Sarah's uniform. "Are you Admiral Chen?" the child asked in careful English. Sarah knelt down to the child's level. She still felt complicated emotions when she saw Carvan, even the young ones. But she had learned to separate the species from the crimes of their leaders. "Yes, I am," she said gently. The child held out a drawing. It showed a human and a Carvan holding hands. "I made this for you. My teacher said you saved my grandfather. He was in the slave compound. If you had not freed him, I would never have been born." Sarah took the drawing carefully. Her throat felt tight. "What is your name?" "Koresh," the child said. "My grandfather talks about you all the time. He says you could have killed everyone on our world, but you did not. He says that is why the Carvan are different now." Sarah looked at the child and saw hope. "Tell your grandfather I said hello, and tell him I am glad he is free." Koresh ran back to play with the other children. Sarah watched them for a moment, then turned back to the memorial. So much had changed in 10 years. The Sovereign Collective had collapsed within a year after their defeat. The species that had controlled the galaxy for millennia could not survive the loss of their military power and their reputation. Some of them had reformed and joined the new order. Others had retreated to their homeworlds, bitter and angry. The Galactic Federation had taken their place. It was everything the old council was not. Every species had a vote, regardless of how old they were or how powerful. Laws applied equally to everyone. War crimes were punished, whether they were committed by ancient species or young ones. Most importantly, Slavery was illegal everywhere. The Federation had made it clear that any species that practiced slavery would be quarantined from galactic society. Several species had chosen isolation rather than give up their slaves. The Federation let them go. Freedom had to be chosen, not forced. The Carvan had surprised everyone. After their defeat and the exposure of their slave operations, their entire civilization had undergone radical change. The old government had been overthrown by their own people. The new Carvan leadership had apologized formally to every species they had harmed. They had paid reparations. They had opened their records so the galaxy could see the full truth of their crimes. It had not been easy. Many species, including many humans, did not trust the Carvan. They wanted revenge, not reconciliation. But the Federation had been founded on principles of justice, not vengeance. The Carvan were given a chance to prove they had changed. Commander Ricard had stood trial for his crimes. The evidence was overwhelming. He was found guilty of genocide and crimes against sentient beings. The tribunal sentenced him to life imprisonment. Some people thought the sentence was too lenient. Sarah was not one of them. Killing Vrekar would have made him a martyr. Letting him spend the rest of his long life watching the Carvan become better without him was a harsher punishment. The biggest change was the Guardian fleet. Admiral Webb had proposed it during the first Federation Assembly. It was a military force made up of volunteers from any species who wanted to join. Their mission was simple: protect any member of the Federation from aggression. The Guardian fleet did not belong to any one species or government. It belonged to the Federation itself. And it had one strict rule: it could defend but never attack first. The galaxy had seen enough wars of conquest. Sarah commanded the Guardian fleet now. Admiral Webb had retired after helping establish it. He had done his part. Now it was time for the next generation to lead. Sarah walked through the Guardian fleet headquarters on the moon. The building was designed to welcome all species. There were water tanks for aquatic beings, low-gravity sections for species from small worlds, temperature-controlled zones for those who needed extreme heat or cold. In the main assembly hall, Sarah saw the future of the galaxy. Officers from 50 different species worked side by side. They wore the same uniform regardless of whether they had scales, fur, feathers, or skin. They swore the same oath: to protect all Federation members equally. Not everyone had joined the Federation. About 30% of galactic species had chosen to remain independent. The Federation respected their choice. The goal was not to force unity, but to offer an alternative to the chaos of competing empires. Some of those independent species were hostile. They raided Federation worlds and attacked Federation ships. The Guardian fleet responded, but always with restraint. They defended. They rescued. They captured criminals for trial. But they did not invade or conquer. This restraint frustrated some people. They wanted the Guardian fleet to strike back hard against any threat. They wanted humanity to use its military advantage while it lasted. Sarah understood the temptation, but she also understood why it was wrong. "We are not the strongest species," she told her officers during a briefing. "Other civilizations will eventually match our technology. Some already have. If we rule through strength alone, we will eventually be overthrown by someone stronger." She looked at the mixed species crew around her. "But if we rule through principles, if we prove that justice and equality work better than oppression, then we create something that lasts. We create something worth defending." A young human officer raised his hand. "Admiral, some people say we are too soft. They say the old council would have crushed rebellions without mercy. They say we need to be more aggressive." Sarah nodded. The old council lasted 5,000 years through fear, but it fell in a single generation once someone stood up to it. "Fear is a weak foundation," she smiled. "Trust is stronger. Justice is stronger, and those take time to build." The officer seemed satisfied with that answer. That evening, Sarah received a message from Earth. President Vasquez was stepping down after 10 years in office. She had led humanity through its darkest and brightest hours. Now it was time for someone else to take the responsibility. The message included a personal note. "Sarah, they want you to run for president. You have more support than anyone else. Please consider it. The Federation needs leaders who remember why we built it." Sarah read the message 3 times. President. Her. A girl from a small town who had just wanted to explore space. Now she was being asked to lead humanity in shaping the galaxy's future. She thought about Thomas Wright and his daughters. She thought about the 800 children at New Horizon. She thought about Koresh, the small Karvan child who had been born free because Sarah had chosen mercy over vengeance. She thought about everything humanity had sacrificed and everything they had gained. The next morning, Sarah returned to the memorial at New Horizon. She placed her hand on the black stone wall and felt the names etched there. "I'm going to say yes," she told them quietly. "I am going to try to lead. I do not know if I will be any good at it, but I will try to make your deaths mean something. I will try to build a galaxy where this never happens again." The wind blew across the memorial plaza. In the distance, she could hear the children playing at the school. Human laughter mixed with alien sounds, all of them growing up together, learning together, becoming something new together. Sarah smiled. This was what humanity had fought for. Not territory or resources or power. They had fought for the right of everyone to live without fear. The right of children to grow up in peace. The right of all species to be treated with dignity. The galaxy had called humans weak because they valued individual lives, because they cared about things like justice and compassion, because they tried to solve problems with words before using weapons. But in the end, those things had made humanity strong. Not strong enough to conquer the galaxy, strong enough to change it. Sarah turned away from the memorial and walked toward her ship. She had work to do. A campaign to run. A galaxy to help govern. A future to build. Behind her, the names on the wall stood silent witness. They had paid the price for this peace. Sarah would spend the rest of her life making sure their sacrifice mattered. The galaxy had crossed a line 10 years ago. They had pushed humanity too far. They had thought humans would break or run or submit. Instead, humanity had shown them something the galaxy had forgotten. They had shown them that mercy was not weakness, that compassion was not cowardice, that caring about others was not a flaw but the greatest strength any species could possess. The old galaxy had been ruled by fear and power. The new galaxy was learning to be ruled by justice and hope. It was not perfect. It never would be, but it was better. And every day it got a little bit better still. Sarah boarded her ship and looked back one last time at New Horizon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The children were going home to their families. The memorial stood quiet and dignified. Tomorrow she would start her campaign for president. Tomorrow she would face new challenges and new threats. Tomorrow the work would continue. But tonight Sarah allowed herself to feel something she had not felt in a long time. Pride. Not in victory, not in power, but in what humanity had chosen to become. They had been given the chance to rule the galaxy through strength. They had chosen to lead it through example instead. That choice, Sarah thought, made all the difference.